Hi everyone, here's another Iceland shot. This one is just north of Dettifoss, well, just inland from Dettifoss, about half a mile upstream. And I thought this would be a good one to show you how to edit it in two halves and send it over to Photoshop to blend. So again, like previous ones, let's just see if we can get it level. So I'm just using the crop tool, and if you click on the outside it thinks you're going to rotate it and puts up the grid. So I'm just looking at the top of the waterfall along this line here really to see what we can see, and I think that looks fairly level as it is there. So really I just want to make sure that the sky's looking good and we rescue some of these colours from the side, well, you know, these tones rather. So let's just stop one at the bottom, so we'll work our way up. What I'm going to do is just click these lens correction things here first. We'll add a little bit of sharpening, and then I think the first thing I'm going to do is white balance. So let's assume that the water spraying up from these falls is white. It's a fair assumption, I think. Usually is, isn't it? Okay. That's sorted. We'll get add a bit of clarity to the thing, and I'm just gonna, because I want to treat it as two halves, the sky and the bottom. I'm not going to do too many changes. I just want the same white balance and same crop. Right, so we've got to that stage. Whoops, I'll come back wherever you are. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to right click on it and say create virtual copy. And now for the bottom bit, I think we need to probably brighten up quite a bit, don't we? So ignore the sky. Right, so let's just make this a little bit more punchy on the lower end. So let's get this right, brighten it up a little bit. There we go. So just looking at the bottom part, in fact I'm going to switch that warning off there because it's a little bit distracting, isn't it? So what we're after really is the most dramatic lower part we can get. Lots of sharpening, masking. Can we do anything? What do the shadows bring up? Maybe put the blacks back down. Press the Alt key. You can, if you go too far with the blacks, it starts to go black when you press the Alt key. So we've got a few overly black spots there. Okay. Right. So if we go back to the other one now, we see how dark that foreground is. So what I want to do on this one is maybe make a little bit of drama out of the sky. With this you can possibly just use a bit of dehaze. Now one thing you can do, which is quite handy, is have a reference picture. So if you drag the other one, see if you go to RA here, you can have a quick look across and think, right, okay, how bright is that sky relative to the foreground? So probably needs to be a bit brighter, otherwise it's going to look like a black sky and then a bright picture, isn't it? Let's have a think. We want it to be the same white balance, so I'm going to press Ctrl Z to undo that change there. And I think with those two there, yeah, I'm pretty happy that if we select them both, right click, edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. So right click on select the two of them, right click, and then edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. So off that goes now to open Photoshop up. It will create two PSD files. and open up in layers. Hopefully they'll be identical and aligned, because obviously they're the same shot. Here we go. So let's wait and see what happens. Oh, got some noises coming out of the computer. So that's the bottom layer, and hopefully this next one's going to be the top layer. And they will now, yeah, so if you look, we've got two layers. Let's see what we can do. So I'm gonna try select subject and see what it comes up with. Now, yeah, I didn't think there was any prominent object there, so what we'll do instead, I'm gonna select, I'm going to use this quick select tool here, quick selection tool, just going to draw over everything in the foreground, so it goes up to the rocks at the top here. There we go. We can probably have a little play around up there in a moment. Now we've got that selection, we'll let me just add this bit in. So go to plus here, just want to add that in. Let's miss that bit there. And on this one, what we're going to do is invert that selection, so that's Control, Shift and I, so it's now on the sky, and then hit mask. So there you go, that's how you sort of do it. Obviously it's a little bit weird at the top up here, so what I'm going to suggest is you get a brush B, you pipe it down to about 5-10%, and now you've just got to work out which bits you want showing up here. See just that little, now you could try the other way around if you want to make the sky a bit brighter. The whole point is to make that edge look as believable as you can. So if it looks like, yeah, it's not too bad, is it there? So if you think about what it was before, right, you can't really do that too successfully. Hang on, let's just can't really do that too successfully in there. It could be quite good there, look, in Lightroom on its own. Simply because the selection tools in Photoshop are massively superior. So those are those done. What could we do now? Well, let's have a go at making it a bit more punchy. So here's a cool trick. Let's get a black and white layer, and let's set this to overlay, and about 20%, 25%, something like that. There we go. And now we can add little bits of contrast to the colour. So if we go to the sky here, you can see what it's doing. I've got all of the hand thing here, and it's now moving. That's adjusting anything that's blue. This is probably going to be yellows, and it'll just micro adjust these things on the photos. When you click on overlay, it's adding contrast to the shot. So if you see what it's done, it's just marginally added a bit of contrast. Now if you wanted to, you could do quick zoom in. Some sharpening. So here's a tip for sharpening. Get yourself a nice layer of everything. Control Alt Shift and E. Now have a little zoom in and see which filter we want to use. There's lots of sharpens. Let's go for Smart Sharpen. There we go. And we're just going to have a look at what we're going to do. Is we're going to paint sharpness onto things. So I'm gonna, yeah, it's quite high, is that? So let's go for a radius of about 1, and an amount a bit lower than that, maybe 100. There we go. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about these other settings down here. Okay, so that's giving us a layer. Look, we take it off, but we don't want to sharpen everywhere, do we? So if you press the Alt key and then mask, that will hide everything. And now what you can do is, with your brush, you can draw on the mask just to sharpen the places you want. So I recommend maybe 20% on the brush, and what we can do is we can hide this lower area here, so you can see what I'm doing is I'm just revealing the sharp bits of the bits I want sharp. And then if we add on the original shot, so I'm not really sharpening the bits I don't want people to see. So let's just add a bit of sharpness. You want the waterfall sharp. And these pavements on top look cool, so we'll just add sharpness if you have another look back. Yeah, let's try and get them all. There we go. Yeah, that's good. There we go. Yeah, cool. So put that back. We hide it. It's hard to see at this level, but when you zoomed in, or if you print this thing, you'll notice it quite well. Right, how about a little bit of contrast? Similar sort of process, go for curves, and let's make that water a bit more interesting. So, again, we're looking just at the water, and we're going to draw on this contrast. So just this bottom bit here. So to invert the mask, so it's hiding everything, you just press Control I for invert, and then let's just grab hold of a brush, a white brush, and we can reintroduce that contrast just in the bits we want. There we go. Yeah, I mean you could use selections to be a bit tidier on this. I've probably gone a bit onto the rocks here. I mean, but you get the idea. Okay. Now I do have set up an action to do this, which is, I think, contrast 2016. So if so this pops up a curve. Let's say we're going to have a play with the actual fall itself. We're going to brighten up the water. And what it's done the curve and it's created the mask for me. So if you know about actions, it's worth setting one of these up for, so you can just click on that, and then we can just draw onto the front of the waterfall. Maybe brighten up the back as well if you like. There we go. I mean, whilst we're down here, this might be a little bit on the dark side, so we can add a bit of lichen to it. Like that. What else? I mean, you don't have to go brighter, you can go darker. Maybe let's darken the sky at the top a bit. There we go. And let's just add a bit of drama. There we go. Look at that. Yeah, Get the idea. Maybe just dark. No, that's rubbish. Can't do that. Control Z undoes it. Now, to me, it's sort of screaming black and white. So let's just do a proper black and white layer this time. We'll pop the select the top one. So when we had an adjustment there, it goes up to the top. Now we have got many presets here. So what I always do is just have a little scroll down them. That's not a bad one there, the infrared, weirdly. I'm not even looking at what the preset is, I'm just pressing the down arrow to scroll through them. Not a lot of difference in some of them. High contrast blue. Well, maybe that one, a bit brighter, isn't it? Okay, so that's added our filter, our black and white. So let's have a, oops, I clicked group by accident there. Let's just give it a general bit more contrast. Just a slight tweak. How's that? And now I think it could be a bit, just to rescue those very brightest bits. I'm just going to create some luminosity masks using this extension. There we are. And I just want to highlight the very brightest bits. So I'm going to press the Control key. And let's see if I can just darken those down a bit. So you can brighten them up so they go pure white if you like. Don't really want them to look too burnt out, you see. We can maybe do a bit more with the brights generally. So there's the curves. You know, so if you wanted to just darken down ever so slightly, those bright bits, so they don't look like they're totally washed out. Something as simple as that. What about these dark areas? The cool thing is, you see, there's a selection. Then you can brighten the dark areas up. You can darken them right down. It's really nice to be able to control specific bright, luminosity areas. I suppose that's why we use these things. So. Darks. This is like just general darks, I think. So curves, if you look, there's quite a big selection there. Yep. So these are the really darks. So if we darken the really darks and maybe brighten the semi-darks, you can play all day with those, and it's always good fun. When you're done, always click clean up, because each one of these is many megabytes of memory if you save the file. When you're done, press save, and gradually that will end up in Lightroom. So if we pop back to where we started from, so if I do a create virtual copy, reset it, so that's the start file. That's a tweak we did for the foreground. That's the tweak we did for the sky. So then we put both of those layers together. It's still saving because it's a big old file. So we ended up with, let's just close all these down. So we've got the foreground and the sky. We then added a black and white layer in overlay mode, so it added a bit of contrast. Then we did some sharpening on the interesting bits, added a bit of contrast to the river itself, started to brighten up interesting bits, Added a bit of drama to the sky. Decided black and white would be better. Did a generic contrast on everything. Then started playing with the luminosity mask. That's to deaden the brightest bits, and maybe just bring the brightest bits down a bit more. Then we darkened the blacks and lifted the middle darks. And that way you get this sort of really dark edge, but these areas here aren't particularly hidden. So we've now popped back to Lightroom. So we've got before, during, and after. And there you go.